Joan Rivers said that Michelle Obama was a man before she died. When
was that a joke? I thought it was a joke.
I thought it was a joke too, but the way she said it wasn't like jokey. She was like, oh, come on, everybody knows Michelle Obama's the man. Like, remember that?
Yeah, like, would Big Mike kill you for that?
Well, I think she died because she had 1,000 plastic surgeries.
Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women.
Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld recently launched into a bold and unapologetic critique of Michelle Obama, completely dismantling her well-crafted public image. They didn't pull any punches, using sharp humor and blunt honesty to challenge the constant admiration and media protection that surrounds her. Throughout the conversation, they question the way she's been portrayed, as both a cultural icon and a symbol of struggle, calling out what they see as a carefully planned narrative meant to shape public perception. They also took issue with the almost untouchable status she seems to have in politics and entertainment, where criticism of her is often avoided. Their discussion peeled back the layers of her polished image, offering a viewpoint that rarely gets airtime. If you've ever wondered what's behind the praise or questioned the stories we're often told about her, this raw and unfiltered conversation is sure to spark some second thoughts.
Jamie, there's a video of her and she's walking into her apartment building.
Right here, I just was playing the one that.
That's it. This is the one.
Or the first woman
we
president.
already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
a transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty funny how she said it.
Okay, we all know it.
These choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump.
Joe Rogan didn't wait for some grand event or headline-grabbing moment to start criticizing Michelle Obama. This wasn't something personal. It was more about the spectacle of it all. She had stepped back into the public eye, almost like a celebrity making a dramatic comeback. And to Joe, it looked like she was positioning herself for something bigger, maybe even testing the waters for another run at political power. He described it like watching someone rehearse the presidency in front of a mirror, practicing every move, every word, every gesture. And Joe couldn't resist. He saw what he believed was a perfectly staged act, wrapped in themes of victimhood and carefully marketed authenticity. Right down a wholesome, relatable image of eating organic kale and promoting wellness. To him, it wasn't about attacking her as a person. It was about pulling back the curtain on what he saw as a performance meant to sway public opinion. He viewed it as an opportunity to cut through the noise and point out what others were too hesitant to say.
That Tim Dillon's video where he was saying that Michelle Obama should run for president. If she won, she could pull her cock out and China would just give up. I was wheezing. I couldn't breathe. Big Mike.
Big Mike.
Rogan didn't rush into a critique. He took his time, settling in with the ease of someone who knew exactly where he was headed. There was no need for shouting or dramatic gestures. A slight grin, a slow sip of his drink, and a knowing shake of his head were enough to let everyone know that what was coming next would be worth hearing. In Joe's eyes, Michelle Obama wasn't simply a former first lady or political figure. She had evolved into something much bigger, something more calculated. He described her as a brand, a polished product designed for mass appeal, blending the role of motivational speaker, influencer, and public icon into one seamless package. He pointed out how her public appearances didn't feel like genuine political discussions anymore. Instead, they came across like carefully staged events, part TED Talk, part upscale fitness commercial, where every word, gesture, and story seemed designed to sell an image rather than share a meaningful policy. Joe argued that it wasn't really about leadership or ideas. It was about maintaining a lifestyle brand, one that relied heavily on charm, relatability, and a carefully curated narrative. In his view, her presence was more about marketing than message, more about posture than policy, and he wasn't afraid to say it out loud.
even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind, Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
He described Joe didn't mince words as he dove into critique, describing Michelle Obama's Netflix specials, podcast launches, best-selling books, and sold-out stadium tours as one of the most carefully executed rebranding campaigns in political history. In his eyes, this wasn't just a former First Lady casually stepping back into the spotlight. It was a full-scale rollout of a new season of her carefully managed political persona, complete with high-end production, media buzz, and strategic messaging. He described her as a walking hashtag, someone who had mastered the art of blending inspirational catchphrases with just enough dissatisfaction and grievance to strike a chord with audiences, all while maintaining a flawless, polished image. Joe argued that everything about her public presence seemed carefully calculated to keep her in the public eye while positioning her as both relatable and aspirational. He especially called out the irony of her frequently speaking about personal struggles and hardships while living in extreme wealth and luxury, noting the odd contrast between her messages of adversity and reality of her multi-million-dollar lifestyle. To Joe, it wasn't simply about sharing her story. It was about selling an image, carefully crafted to resonate, inspire, and subtly pave the way for even...
Joe Rogan is calling out Oprah and Michelle Obama for hypocritical speeches at the DNC. Watch.
She's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You're rich as Like, how is that equal? And also, when Michelle Obama was saying, you know, I think she was saying her mother or grandmother was always suspicious of people who took more than they needed.
Yes.
Like, you are worth so much money.
Take more than they need. The Obamas have 4 mansions.
I mean,
But Joe wasn't anywhere near done. He kept pressing, diving even deeper into what he believed was the biggest contradiction in Michelle Obama's public image: her repeated focus on hardship, struggle, and adversity, despite being one of the most privileged, wealthy, and influential women in the country. Joe pointed out how strange it felt to hear someone with such immense power and luxury continually frame herself as a victim of circumstance. He compared it to watching royalty, like a duchess, giving a TED talk about how exhausting it is to live in the lap of luxury, mocking the way she often spoke about her experiences, as if they were monumental struggles. He joked that, in her world, trauma meant something like bad lighting during a book tour or a less-than-perfect seat at a high-end event. Joe wasn't just criticizing her words. He was also calling out the media's eager response. He highlighted how every time Michelle Obama shared these stories, the media would swoon, reacting as though she had delivered some groundbreaking, historical speech. According to him, they treated her every sentence like it was the modern-day equivalent to Gettysburg Address, only wrapped in the language of self-care, empowerment, and kale smoothies. He argued that it wasn't about truth or leadership. It was about image management, and the media was fully invested in selling that image to the public. Joe painted the whole scene as a carefully staged show, where even the smallest complaints were elevated to profound statements, with the press cheering her on every step of the way. To him, it was all theater, and most people were too distracted by the sparkle to see through it.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up when she cleans it.
Joe started more. Obama's polished narratives kept rolling. Joe Rogan really started to find his groove, picking up momentum and sharpening his tone. He pointed out the irony of someone who had spent 8 years living in the White House, surrounded by power and attention, only to later write a memoir about feeling invisible. Joe joked that Michelle might be the only person in the world who could claim to be marginalized while trending nonstop across every news outlet and social media platform for weeks at a time. He compared her to an Olympic torch, constantly carried, never allowed to dim, always positioned as a symbol of struggle she hadn't actually endured in the way it was presented. Then Joe shifted gears to one of his favorite parts, her cultural campaigns. He dug into her public crusades about food, fitness, and personal discipline, calling her fixation on kale almost comical, like she believed leafy greens could fix deep-rooted societal problems. He laughed about her school lunch program, saying it didn't inspire healthier eating. It just turned kids into candy smugglers, sneaking snacks like they were dealing with some underground black market. According to Joe, her healthy eating initiative wasn't a revolution. It was more like a nationwide hunger strike served on dull cafeteria trays. But what really got Joe going was what he described as the self-righteous way she wielded her image. He said it wasn't enough for Michelle to simply be influential or successful. She had presented herself as some kind of moral guide, the nation's conscience wrapped in workout gear. He found the whole act hilarious, saying everything she did seemed exaggerated and carefully staged. Every sentence, he joked, carried the weight of endless opinion pieces. Every nod, every smile felt rehearsed and timed perfectly for cameras. To Joe, it wasn't about being a genuine person anymore. It was a non-stop brand campaign disguised as authenticity, where even sneakers became a symbol of her larger-than-life narrative.